Okay, I'm going to start. Say good evening, everyone. It looks like it's 3 o'clock. Amy, just a little chore maybe in case we have some background issues. Can you hit into, pull up, lift every voice so if we need to, we can use that while I'm going through my little spiel here. First, I'd like to, as I said, say good afternoon. I'd like to first thank each of you for taking time to join Neighbors United Undoing Racism and East Central College for our annual Martin Luther King celebration. Our format this year is different due to the pandemic. We've been forced to make many changes and adjust to a changing world. Today, our theme is We Come This Far. However, before we start, I would like to take a little of your time to talk about why we are here. We're here to celebrate and honor a man that gave his life leading the civil rights movement, a man of faith, a man that believed we should fight through nonviolence. Just a few facts about this great man. Dr. King was born on January 15th, 1929. His birth name was Michael Luther King Jr., which he later changed to Martin. Some more facts about Dr. King. He entered college at the age of 15, skipping grades 9 through 12. He was jailed 29 times. Dr. King was the youngest male to win a Nobel Peace Prize. He donated the $54,123 prize money to the civil rights movement. Dr. King won a Grammy and was awarded a Congressional Gold Medal and a Medal of Freedom. The Grammy was won in 1971 for the Best Spoken Word album, Why I Oppose the War in Vietnam. Today, there are 950 streets in the US named for him. In 1983, President Ronald Reagan signed a law making Dr. King's birthday a federal holiday to be observed annually on the third Monday of January. However, the first Martin Luther King holiday was not observed until January 20th, 1986. And it was not until the year 2000 that all 50 states recognized the Martin Luther King holiday. Here we are in 2021, still fighting inequalities. Dr. King said, and I quote, "Human progress is neither automatic nor inevitable. Every step toward the goal of justice requires sacrifice, suffering, and struggle. The tireless exertions and passionate concern of dedicated individuals. We've experienced many setbacks, and each year we are still wondering, how long? How long will we have to dream? How long must we come together to celebrate and honor this great man, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., before we will be able to say we have reached the mountaintop and all things are equal? So as I shared, this year's celebration will be different. We welcome you to our celebration of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., sponsored by Neighbors United Undoing Racism and East Central College. Before closing, I'd like a few things for you to know. The host has muted everyone but the participants or the speaker on the program. If you have questions, feel free to enter them in the chat room and we will attempt to answer them. And one sad note, or two, I should say, unfortunately, we're not sitting in the luxury of East Central College auditorium that Dr. Bauer so gracefully gives us each year. And also, I have to share that we're not going to have our reception, and I won't have Brown Jerry's barbecue at the closing, but you can still visit with him. And what I would like to say, sit back, relax, and enjoy. Thank you. Okay. And now at this time, I would like to We are going to move to the invocation. However, before we do that, we are graced because of our use of technology and being forced to change, to have a special person to do the invocation for us. And I will say that I probably know more about this young man than most people will know or ever know. Very proud of him. Glad that he could be with us this year. The hope was I was hoping he would be here in St. Louis to be with us. But Reverend Milton L. Dahl, who is the pastor of the Kaiser Street Church in Garland, Texas, will provide the invocation for us. And Milton is a native St. Louisan. However, he has transferred and now lives in the great city of Dallas, Texas. And without further ado, I turn the podium over to Milton to provide us with our invocation. Following the invocation, we will do Lift Every Voice and Sing. Thank you.
Let us pray. Eternal God, in your divine providence and wisdom, you have called us, your sons and daughters, to be living witnesses to your truth, love, and justice in the world. You give us the grace and the strength to be instruments of your mercy and compassion in a world that is often filled with hatred, bigotry, and indifference. We pause before you this day in remembrance and thanksgiving for the life and the legacy of your faithful servant, witness, and martyr, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. We thank you for his time among us, for his example of meekness and courage, for his inspired words and writings, for his integrity of life, for his prophetic leadership and authentic witness of the principles of speaking truth to power. We rejoice in the fact that his life and legacy has endured and continues to endure through the efforts of organizations such as Neighbors United Undoing Racism and East Central College. We thank you for the fact that Dr. King continues to inspire millions of people today over the world, people of every religion and creed, people of every color and ethnic heritage, people young and old, rich and poor alike, to rise above themselves and to realize that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Lord, as we participate in this program, we ask that it not just be another memorial for Dr. King, but allow it to inspire us to movement and action, to continue the endeavors of bringing his dream to pass for all. God, I ask that you would allow us to leave this virtual space refocused, resuscitated, and renewed in our determination to live together as brothers and sisters and to fight against all forms of injustice and inequality. This is your servant's prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.
Every voice and sing, together and ring with Shall we believe my God, living forever stand, true to our God, true to our native land.
As someone who has told a few stories myself, I am pleased that this year's celebration, we have a keynote speaker who will not give us a speech. Instead, Mettazee Morris will tell us a story. I want to say a little about Met. She and her husband have just moved from Quincy, Illinois to Chicago, where they are still unpacking boxes. They have 3 adult children, and I've known the family for a little over 20 years. I've done several storytelling events with Met, and in addition to her storytelling, she is an accomplished pianist and vocalist. No one would have me sing with her, but she has sung with Gladys Cogswell on PBS national television. The story Mettazee will tell is a first-person historical portrayal of Martha Jane Chisley Tolton, the mother of Father Augustus Tolton, who was the first African-American priest of the Roman Catholic Church in the United States. Her story is particularly significant this year because her son, Augustus, is currently being considered for designation as Saint Augustus by the Roman Catholic Church. If I had a vote, I'd vote for sainthood for Father Augustus and his mother too. There are memorials to Father Tolton in Columbia, Missouri at Father Tolton High School, in Chicago, and in Quincy, Illinois at the parishes he served there. In today's story, met as Martha Jane Chisley Tolton, will take us on her long, hard walk to freedom and justice during the Civil War. Met does a heartfelt portrayal of Martha, showing her strengths and determination as she escaped slavery in Missouri, encountered and escaped from soldiers of the Confederate Army, crossed the Mississippi River with her own 3 children in tow, and made her way to Quincy, Illinois. She tells us of the Free State of Illinois and the Underground Railroad station in Quincy. She talks of the progression of Father Tolton from slave child to priesthood and how Martha was so instrumental in making that happen. I give you accomplished storyteller, Mettazee Morris.
I want to remind everybody to mute yourself. There's some background noise coming through from somewhere and I'm not sure where it is. I can't find it. And then Ms. Morris, I invite you to unmute yourself and I will mute myself.
Did that do it? Okay. We've come this far by faith, leaning on the Lord, trusting in his holy word. He's never failed me yet. Oh, 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 can't turn around. We've come this far by faith. My story of faith and trust and love for God begins in Meade County, Kentucky, on the John Manning plantation. My mother's name was Matilda Hurd, and my father's name was Augustine Chisley. The Mannings were Catholics, and when Catholics bought their slaves, they had them instructed and baptized in the Catholic Church. When the slaves had their children, they were baptized in the Catholic Church. The Mannings were pretty rich people. As far as the eye could see, there was land. They had fields of corn and beans and vegetables. They had horses and cows and pigs and chickens, and they had many slaves to work the crops and tend to the animals. Mr. Manning became sick and he died. And his wife remarried a man named Stephen Birch. And his daughter became engaged to a man named Stephen Elliott. Now, Mr. Birch had to impress his stepdaughter with a grand wedding present. So out of the lot of slaves, he gave her 6 slaves as a present for her wedding. And in that 6 was a slave girl named Martha Jane Chisley. She was 16. We had to go about planning for that wedding. We worked, we cleaned, we decorated, we cooked. We were so tired. And the day of the wedding, there were so many people and so many presents and so much food, and everybody was so happy. And I was so happy when it was all over. When the wedding was over, Mr. Elliott announced that he had bought property in Missouri, and they were gonna pack up all of their belongings and go to Missouri. And included in their belongings was a 16-year-old girl. And not included was her mother, her father, her brother, her family. So the day we packed up to leave for Missouri was one of the saddest days of my life. And I begged Mr. Elliott to please let my family come with us. But we left without them. The trip up the river was sad and lonely. But you know, I felt some kind of kindred spirit to that river. It was soothing out there. And I prayed to God, please let me see my family again. And do you know, I never ever saw my family again. We finally made it to Missouri, and everyone was happy. We traveled to the farm that the Elliots had bought. And on it was near Brush Creek, Missouri. And to the property, 3 miles to the property line of the Elliots was another Catholic family named Hagar. And on the Hagar family was this slave boy, beautiful man named Peter Paul Tolton. And one day there was a young man in the field and he fell out because he had been working in the sun for too long. And I was screaming and yelling for someone to please come and help me. And Peter somehow showed up to help me with this young boy. But it was too late. He died. We couldn't do anything to help him. But Peter and I never stopped thinking about each other from that day on. And he would travel to the farm to see me. And we enjoyed each other's company, but we had to keep it a secret. And finally, we told the Hagars and the Elliots how we felt about each other, that we loved each other and we wanted to be married. So the Hagars and the Elliots came up with an agreement. We could be married, but Peter would remain the property of the Hagars and I would remain the property of the Elliots. If we had children, they would belong to the Elliots. And with that agreement made, in the spring of 1851, at the age of 18, I was married in St. Peter Church in Brush Creek, Missouri. Peter and I were in love, but you know, we liked each other generally as well. And Peter worked hard day in and day out in the fields and in the brewery. And at night we came home together. Then along came children. And Charles came and he was a sickly boy. Then Augustus came and we named him after my father. And then there was baby Ann. Now Peter paid attention to everything. He was always concerned about our family in slavery. And he knew that there would never be anything good for our family being in slavery. So he listened as slave traders came through from all parts of the country, and they talked about slavery. And some people in the country felt that slavery was all right. And others knew that slavery would never be all right. Peter was concerned about the freedom and education of our children. It was against the law to educate slaves in Missouri. But somehow we managed to get around that because of some of the slave masters who were willing to teach us. Now, Peter talked about the Underground Railroad system they had over in Illinois. He told me about it all the time, and he considered running away to join the Union Army so that he could gain freedom for our family. And one night, he decided he was going to do just that. And he talked to the children and me, and then he stole away. My heart was heavy for Peter. I was concerned about his safety, but I was so proud of him for having the nerve and the courage to do that. And the children and I prayed for him. Steal away, steal away, steal away to Jesus, steal away home. I ain't got long to stay here. Not long after that, word came to me that Peter had been injured and had died in a hospital in St. Louis. And I wondered, Lord, what am I going to do with 3 children to raise in this terrible, terrible situation? Whenever slaves ran away, then that left more work for the ones of us left there. And my heart was breaking every day as I watched my little sons breaking their little backs out in the fields in the hot sun. And I made up my mind that I was going to run away with my children. Now, I was well aware of the dangers of doing this. I knew that my baby, if nothing else, could cry out and give us away. But Peter's spirit was there with us, and I felt that he would want us to do something. I had to do something. So I gathered up the little food and the few clothing that I could without being noticed, and we stole away. And yes, it was scary out there. Sometimes we had the moonlight to travel by, and the rest of the time we had the faith and the love and belief in God to travel by. During the day, the slaves in the fields would hide us and give us food and let us rest. And at night, we travel and we go through cuckaballs and bugs and all kind of noises that we never had heard before in that darkness. But the children were so good. They never complained once. And we finally made our way to the river in Hannibal. And as soon as we got down to the docks, a group of Confederate soldiers caught us. And they were about to put us in chains. And a group of Union soldiers came and says, no, they're with us. And they gave us to the Union soldiers. When the Confederate soldiers went away, the Union soldiers took us down to the docks of the river. And there was this old dilapidated rowboat. And they put me and my children on that dilapidated rowboat. Now, I had never been on a rowboat, and I definitely didn't know how to row a rowboat. But that boat was headed toward the shore of Illinois to freedom. And as I was trying to row that boat, we went this way and we went that way. But I didn't care because we were headed to freedom. And as we got a little distance out in the river, the Confederate soldiers saw us. And they yelled at us, hey, you can come back here. And they went pow, pow, pow. They started shooting at me and my babies. It scared us to death. My babies were crying, I was crying. And I finally got them settled down. I settled myself down out there in that river. Wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. Oh, wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. Early in the morning, I could see the shore of Illinois. And as it got a little closer, I could see men walking across the shore. And I thought, oh no. My heart went to my toes because all I could think of was it was slave hunters. And we had done all of this. We'd gone through all of what we went through, and now they were gonna catch us. As it got a little closer, I recognized them as German fishermen, and they recognized us as runaways. And they helped us out of that old dilapidated rowboat, took us up on the shore, gave us water and food to drink and a place to rest. And then they showed us the direction of Quincy. Oh, freedom, oh, freedom, oh, freedom over me, and before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. We made it to Quincy just about dark. And we went to a woman's house named Mrs. Brown. And somehow she knew we were coming. She accepted us in her home, and we lived there for the next 2 years. Ms. Brown had one child, and we took care of each other's children. And my boys and I found work in the brewery in Quincy, Illinois. Now, Charles was sickly, and one winter, he caught pneumonia. The doctors did everything they could for Charles, but he died. It was a sad, sad, sad time for me, but you know, I had faith in God and I trusted God. So then we started going to church at St. Boniface Church in Quincy. And my son, Gus, he loved the Lord. And he loved listening to those Latin masses. Now, they taught the masses, they preached the masses in Latin, but at the end of the church service, the priest would go in the back and teach the masses to the Black church members in English. But Gus learned those masses by heart. He learned them by heart in Latin, and he loved the Lord. So I decided it was time for him to go to school. So I enrolled him at St. Boniface School. It wasn't good for him. He didn't know how, he was bigger than most of the kids. He didn't look like any of them. He didn't know how to read. He didn't know how to write. He didn't know his arithmetic, and they made fun of him. The children did. The parents didn't want him there because he looked like he looked. And they threatened that if they didn't put him out of school, they would take their children out of the school and out of the church. My son was miserable, so I took him out of school. He continued to work. And after a few years, once we got settled down in Quincy, the Church of St. Lawrence decided that they would teach him. So he enrolled in the School of St. Lawrence, which is St. Peter's School today. I will break right now and give you a chance to ask any questions you may have, and then I will go to the end of my presentation.
So we're going to actually take a minute. We're going to take a few minutes. Everybody has been assigned to breakout rooms, and I want to give you all a chance to talk to one another and to talk together about what does this story that you've heard so far, what does it tell you about how far we've come in America, in the United States, with regard to race relations? And I especially want to ask you to think about how this story that we're listening to connects to your own family story. And if you can share that, you'll be in a room with 3 or 4 other people. And of course, some people's computers have 2 people on them or whatever, but I'm gonna give you guys 10 minutes to have a little bit of conversation. And if you have any questions, please bring those and put them into the chat box. I've just typed in the question I'm sending you into your chat rooms with. So the computer should take you right there and bring you back without you having to do anything. But if it asks you a question, say yes. I think that's everybody. So Mother Tolton, if you would continue your story, please. You'll have to unmute yourself.
All right. So Father McGurr was a priest from St. Boniface Church, and he took notice of Gus, my son. He liked his religious spirit and encouraged him to become a priest. Gus really liked that idea, and so did I. But there were many hurdles because there was no other Black priest in this country. We filled out applications after applications. And the response letters always started with the same response. We are not ready for a Negro student. Not one seminary in this country would accept him as a student because of the color of his skin. So the priest in the city of Quincy and at Quincy University decided that they would teach him. So he was enrolled at the school here in Quincy University. And he studied there and he graduated from there, but they never gave up the idea of him becoming a priest. So they worked with the diocese, and at the age of 26, he was admitted to the Propaganda Seminary in Rome. Can you think of a better place to learn to become a priest than in Rome? We were so happy. And he went to Rome, and we wrote each other back and forth all the time so that he would let us know how he was doing. They told him that he would be assigned to be a priest in Africa. And he was excited that he would be able to teach the word of God to people in Africa. But to his surprise, when he finished his program, they sent him back to Quincy, Illinois. I was happy. And they had the biggest church program, and he did his first high mass at St. Boniface Church in Quincy, Illinois. And then he was assigned to be the priest at St. Joseph Church here in Quincy, Illinois. And that is where the colored parishioners went to church. But every Sunday, people from all of the other parishes came to hear him speak. I mean, and did he speak? He could speak, he could sing. I guess he got that from his mother. But the other priests in the town were not happy because not only did he take the church members from their church over to his church, but they brought their offerings with them. That didn't go over at all. So they complained to the diocese, and he was called in, and he was told to stop luring the white churchgoers into St. Joseph Church, or he would need to go somewhere else. That broke his heart, because all he wanted to do was to serve God and serve the people. So he decided to move to Chicago, and he left Quincy silently one night. And he went to the church in Chicago, and he was ministering to poor Black people there at St. Monica's Church. They had no money. So he would go out and do speeches and raise money to bring back to them so that they could have a church. And sometimes he would be so tired, they would have to bring a chair to him to sit down to finish his message. And one day, at the age of 43 years old, He fell dead in the streets of Chicago. And they said it was from a sunstroke. But he also had some kidney problems. And once again, I trusted God. I trusted that he knew what he was doing. Now, word came back to Quincy that he had died, and they were ready for him to come to have his funeral in Quincy because he had requested it. Even though there were unhappy times in Quincy, he also fulfilled his dream in Quincy. So his body was sent to Quincy on the train, and his church members met at the train station to send him off as they sang his favorite hymn. Holy God, we praise thy name. Lord of all, we bow before thee. All on earth thy scepter claim. All in heaven above adore thee. Infinite thy vast domain. Everlasting is thy reign. There was a large funeral in St. Peter's Church. And today, Father Tolton, the first Black priest in the United States, is laid to rest in St. Peter's Cemetery in Quincy, Illinois. I had 7 children, and now I only have 1 left. But as I said, I trusted God always knows what he's doing. And he has blessed me to live for a long time. And I continue to serve in St. Monica's Church, and I always will love and trust God. Some glad morning when this life is over, I'll fly away to a land where joy shall never end. I'll fly away. Oh, I'll fly away. Oh, glory, I'll fly away in the morning when I die. Hallelujah, by and by, I'll fly away. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. What a wonderful story. I would like to invite you, I'm going to open our breakout rooms. I'm going to have a fewer breakout rooms, if I may. And this time what I would like you to talk about is the question of how far we have left to go. So our theme today is how far we've come. And I would like to invite you to have a conversation about what does the presentation, this story of Mother Tolton spark in you, and what do we have left to do? How far do we have left to go? And what steps can you take toward that? So I'm going to send you to your rooms 10 minutes again, as before. So remember to click the button to join your room. Welcome back, everyone, from the conversations. I hope you had some good conversation. If anybody has any questions that you would like to ask specifically of Mother Tolton, this would be a good time to ask it. On the screen right now, you see a couple of pictures. This is a picture of Father Tolton, and there's the one that was on here before was also a picture of Father Tolton. Unfortunately, I could not find any pictures of Mother Tolton anywhere.
You will not.
They're just not there, are they?
Mm-mm.
Well, that's too bad.
And I know she was there because I was at her gravesite in Chicago. So she's buried.
Yeah.
but they don't. And I'm really close friends with Father Tolton's great great grandniece, and they don't really have a picture of Martha.
Okay. Does anybody have any other questions for Mother Tolton before we move on?
I think my question is, if she can answer for us, this is not a story that has ended. Father Tolton things are going on now. If she wants to share what's going on now with Father Tolton.
Father Tolton is currently being considered to become a priest, and they've done a lot of the steps. And one of the steps they did was they had to get him out of his grave and test his DNA. They had to exhume him, and I was fortunate enough to be there when they exhumed his body. And it was just, I don't even know how to describe it. It was just totally amazing. And so they're at the point now where they're working on getting the miracles. I believe they need to have 3 miracles, and I think they have 2 miracles already that they've discovered. And so he's well on his way to becoming a saint. And we're all very, very proud of that and humbled by it.
And just to add to what you have said there, for the Catholics, basically what that is saying and mean to us, since he's reached that stage in the process, is that we can now pray to him for intercession with God, to be an intercessor for us. And so I think he's got 2 more steps to go before he's actually recognized as a saint.
Yes.
Okay.
That's true.
I want
Questions? Yeah.
I want to thank Met for all of her research on Father Tolton and Mother Tolton. All of that work that you put in behind in developing your story is incredible. Thanks.
Thank you, Pastor Paul, and thank you all for having me today. It's been a great experience, and it always is when I'm meeting up with people who are interested in what I'm interested in.
And thank you for your singing. That was beautiful. It added nicely to the story.
Thank you very much.
And I noticed that in the chat, Lloyd Kleindienst has added a link to the Wikipedia page about Augustus Tolton. So if you'd like to learn a little bit more about him, that is there. For now, we're going to move on with our program, wanting to keep everybody's time in mind. And the next thing that we have is a musical selection from Karen and Danny and Liz again. And then after that, we have a very exciting announcement from our partner, our group that's partnering with the Equal Justice Initiative. So please stand by to hear that after the music.
Okay. The selection that we are doing right now is Hold On, which is an African-American spiritual. And we sing this spiritual, but we do recognize that though it's not a part of our personal cultural heritage, we do sing it in honor and memory of those for whom it was. Hold on, you gotta hold on. Just keep your hand on the plow and hold on. Nora, Nora, let me come in. The door's all fastened and the window is filled.
Thank you for that. That was wonderful. The next presenter is Jennifer Worthwine. And so I'm going to turn it over to her, and I need to have somebody else be able to share the screen. And this is a whole new level of Zoom for me. So let me see if I can make it so that he can share the screen. Here, I'm going to make you a co-host, Lloyd, and hopefully now you can share your screen. And Jennifer, if you unmute, you should be able to speak.
Thank you. Okay. I think today is a perfect day as we are honoring Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and how far we've come to announce our racial justice essay contest. The Franklin County Community Remembrance Project Coalition in efforts with the Equal Justice Initiative is sponsoring the essay contest, which officially kicks off today. It is open to all 9th through 12th grade students that are Franklin County public school students. They can win scholarships up to $5,000. The essays will examine racial injustices and the lasting imprints that they have on society. It might include the economy, housing, voter suppression, incarceration, terror lynching. There are a variety of topics. The winner will read their essay at an awards ceremony on May 1st, where there will be a remembrance plaque in honor of Mr. Erastus Brown, a Franklin County resident who was killed by lynching. Essays are due by April 15th, and students will receive support from myself and the committee. We have some Zoom meetings set up for February 1st, March 1st, and April 5th. We have a website set up with some different links and supports, and students can also reach us through email and we'll respond within 24 hours. We all know the power of education, and I hope that all of you will share the news of this essay contest and encourage participation. We hope to have a lot of submissions from Franklin County this year, and we appreciate your support. I'm going to put the website for those of you interested in the chat, and we'll get that out there for everyone who is interested.
And sorry, Jennifer, you said public school, but it was my understanding that it's actually any student who lives in Franklin County, whatever school they go to, any student who lives or goes to school in Franklin County. Is that correct?
When we ran that by the Equal Justice Initiative Committee, they wanted it to just be public school.
Okay, so we because of where the funds are coming from, we can't.
Correct.
Oh, thank you for clarifying that. Thank you very much. So in the chat, you will see fccrp.kleindienst.com. That's where you can find more information about this. And then we will also be posting more information about it to the Neighbors United Facebook page. So please share this with the kids that you know who might be eligible. And there's some great prize money available thanks to a partnership that we have with the Equal Justice Initiative. So thank you very much for that. So that leads it back to me. And so hold on, I have to figure out how to share my screen again because we're back to me. It's always a challenge. The fun that is Zoom. So you'll see here at the bottom of my screen that, that I'm sharing with you are a few of our announcements that we have coming up. Neighbors United meets monthly, and you are invited to join us. And you can find more information on how to do that by signing up for our newsletter. And that's the little shortened link. So if you write that down and go there, you can put in your information and you will receive our newsletter on a regular basis. And then finally, the Black History Trivia that's being sponsored by our Vacation Cultural School program. We'll be doing that in February, on February 21st. That's a Sunday. And it'll be a fun educational time for the whole family. So a little less competitive than traditional St. Louis trivia nights. If you're familiar with how St. Louis trivia nights go, this will be a little less competitive, but just as much fun. And we'll be doing that through Zoom. So please join us for that. I just have a few closing remarks before we go. And I want to invite you into some action. So if I may, our theme this year for the Martin Luther King Day celebration is We've Come This Far. And Ms. Morris has done a wonderful job of sharing Martha Tolton's story and demonstrating for us just how far we really have come. But unfortunately, some of the events of recent years, even recent weeks, have shown us how far we have yet to go. 12 years ago this week, I attended the inauguration of President Barack Obama. With my family, I had the opportunity to stand in Market Square in my hometown of Alexandria, Virginia, where once enslaved Africans were sold. And we watched as we moved into a new era as President Obama was inaugurated and sworn into office. And it all felt so hopeful. And I expect if you're old enough to remember that day, you remember where you were and how it felt. We had come so far. And then in our naivete, I'm afraid that we white liberals were more than hopeful. We thought we had done well. We patted ourselves on the back for supporting President Obama, lulled by the belief that we really were moving into a post-racial era, that the work was done. Now, of course, we must admit that we were not only wrong, but that our complacency was harmful. Had we not lived such sheltered and segregated lives, we might have noticed how our Black brothers and sisters nearly fainted with fear as President Obama stepped out of the limousine during the parade on that inauguration day. We might have noticed the increased stress on our Secret Service agents over the 8 years that the Obamas lived in the White House. We might have felt the rising dread across the country as hate groups multiplied and hate crimes spiked, not just in the wake of the 2016 election, but in the wake of the 2008 election. We might have recognized that we were more like the white moderate in Dr. King's letter from the Birmingham jail, enjoying a peace that made us comfortable rather than recognizing the continued injustice going on around us. We have an apology to make, and I am sorry. I say that specifically to my Black brothers and sisters. I am sorry for our complacency. And I know that that apology is not the end, but the beginning of the work. In 2016, white liberals began to wake up to what our Black and brown neighbors had known all along. The work was not over. The work was never over. So long as we are in this world, we will have to fight injustice. Jesus told this to us 2,000 years ago when he said, we will have the poor with us always. The injustice that causes poverty is the same injustice that manifests as white supremacy and Christian nationalism. It is the same human tendency to close our circles and seek out our comfort zones and surround ourselves with people who think and look and worship and speak and live and love like us. This sectarianism allows us to justify ourselves, to feel justified in our comfort, while they, whoever they may be, continue to suffer. But the white liberal icon Ruth Bader Ginsburg would remind us of her favorite passage in the Jewish scriptures, Tzadek, Tzadek, Tirdof, justice, justice, you shall pursue. This is the work. This is what it is to be human and to be in human community, the pursuit of justice. Or in the words of Ella Baker, the mother of the civil rights movement, we who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. So I want to call you to action. I want to call you to the pursuit daily of justice. In our newsletter over the coming months, I will be issuing regular calls to action so if you want to receive those calls to action, I encourage you to sign up here with this address on your screen. But for today, what I want to ask you to do, knowing how hard it is to do direct action in the middle of a pandemic, I want to ask you to write a letter. Write a letter and send it to your elected officials or to the local paper as a letter to the editor. And in that letter, I want you to demand that those who serve you denounce white supremacy publicly, immediately, and unequivocally. Or if writing a letter is not your style, make a phone call. But let them know that this is important. Imagine if County Commissioner Tim Brinker received 100 letters and phone calls this week telling him that white supremacy and Christian nationalism are unacceptable to his constituency. Imagine that. What if it were 400 letters or phone calls? What if you wrote a letter, signed your name to it, and then wrote another one and gave it to your neighbor and asked them to sign their name to it? Or your sister, or your cousin, or your pastor? What if you wrote that and then you sent that to Tim Brinker and then you turned around and sent the same letter to your mayor, to Josh Hawley, to Roy Blunt, to your state legislator and your US representative? This is our call to action today. I encourage you to send a letter, send more than one letter. Your voice matters. Make sure it is heard. There is work to be done. It is hard work ahead of us, but we have come so far and we stand on the shoulders of giants. We can do hard things together. Thank you so much for your time with us today. And as we always do, we send ourselves off with the words of "We shall overcome."
We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We are not afraid. We are not afraid. We are not afraid today. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe that we shall overcome someday. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe that we shall overcome someday. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe that we shall overcome someday.
Thank you all so much for your time today, for being with us, and really thank you, Ms. Morris, for your time especially. What a wonderful treat. What a wonderful story.
Enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
And thank you to our singers at Karen and Liz. I haven't met all of you, but I hope to meet all of you at some point. And thank you, everybody. Go in peace.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.